this solution, while we expect to bring men and women eventually in from all over the country, it has to be a beautiful home. It doesn't have to be ostentatious, but it's a beautiful home.
For 1,100 nights, this man slept outside, under bridges, in the back seat of a car until the car got towed, in a tent behind a gas station that police cleared out every few weeks. 3 years of his life spent outdoors, exposed, moving on whenever somebody told him to. 3 years of never once feeling fully safe. And then one afternoon, someone placed a set of keys in his hand. Keys to this, a $20,000 metal building at the end of a gravel road that you could drive past 100 times and never think twice about. Simple sloped roof, a couple of windows, a small covered porch out front. Nothing special from the outside, just a plain little structure sitting quiet at the edge of nowhere. But for the man living inside it right now, this plain little building is the first place in 3 years he's been able to call home. I want to take you inside, not the version you'd see in a glossy real estate video with the soft music and the perfect lighting and the drone shot flying over the roof. The real thing, what it actually feels like to live here, room by room, the way the man who lives here experiences it every single day. Because when you understand what these 4 walls do for a human being, you start to understand something most of us have gotten completely wrong about homelessness. His name doesn't matter for this story. What matters is what happened when he walked up those porch steps and opened the door to a home built specifically for people just like him. So let's start where he started, the front door. For most people, a door is just a door. You walk through a dozen of them a day without a single thought. In one door, out another, and you never once stop to consider what that door is actually doing for you. But imagine you haven't had one in 3 years. Imagine every place you slept, anyone could walk up to. A cop could tap your window at 2 in the morning and tell you to move. A stranger could unzip your tent while you were sleeping. You never once, in over 1,000 nights, got to close something behind you and really know, that you were safe. Now imagine the sound of that door clicking shut for the first time. That small metallic click. For the man who lives here, he says that was the first moment he cried. Not when he got the keys. Not when he first saw the building. When the door closed and the world stayed on the other side of it. He stood there in the entryway with his hand still on the knob, and something in his chest that had been clenched tight for 3 years finally came loose. The entryway is small and honest. A mat on the floor, a hook on the wall for a jacket, and a light switch that works when you flip it. That light switch matters more than you'd think. When you've spent years relying on the sun, on a phone with 2% battery, on the flickering orange glow of a parking lot lamp, being able to reach out and flip a switch and fill a room with warm light feels like a small kind of magic. It's control. It's the simplest possible form of control over your own environment, and it's something he hadn't had in a very long time. The main living space is one open room. Concrete floors, sealed and smooth and cool underfoot. White walls that catch the light. A ceiling fan turning slow overhead. There's a second-hand couch against one wall. A small table with 2 chairs. And a window that lets the afternoon light pour across the floor in a long golden rectangle. It's not fancy. Nobody's pretending it's fancy. But it is clean. It is dry. And it is his. And here's the thing you notice right away when you stand in that room. It's quiet. Real quiet. When you live outside, you never get quiet. There's traffic, there's weather, there's footsteps. There's the constant low hum of having to stay alert to everything around you. Your body never fully relaxes because part of your brain is always keeping watch, always scanning, always ready to grab your things and move. Inside these walls, for the first time in years, that part of the brain finally gets to switch off. He described it as feeling like he'd been holding his breath for 3 years and someone finally let him exhale. He told me it took him almost 2 weeks before he stopped flinching at sounds. A car passing on the road, the wind pushing against the metal siding. For the first few nights, his body still reacted the way it had learned to react out there, still bracing for someone to appear, still waiting to be told to move along. It takes time to convince a nervous system that the danger is actually over. But slowly, day by day, the flinching stopped. And that, more than anything, is when it started to feel like home. Let's walk to the back, because the next room might be the most important one in the whole place. The bathroom. It's a small room. A toilet, a sink, a mirror, and a shower with a curtain. That's it. Nothing you'd ever photograph for a magazine. But if you've ever been without a bathroom, even for a single day, you know that this little room represents something enormous. Dignity. When you're homeless, using the bathroom becomes one of the hardest and most humiliating parts of every single day. Gas stations lock their doors and put up signs that say customers only. Libraries have time limits and someone watching the clock. Fast food places chase you off the second they realize you're not buying anything. You end up planning your entire day around the simple biological question of where, exactly, you are allowed to be a human being. And a shower? A hot shower becomes something you dream about. Something you might get once a week at a shelter if you're lucky, and you get in line early enough and there's still hot water left by the time it's your turn. The man who lives here told me the first hot shower in his own bathroom lasted 45 minutes. He just stood there. He didn't want to get out. Not because he was dirty, though he was, but because for the first time in years, nobody was going to knock on the door and tell him his time was up. There was no line behind him, no timer, no attendant. Just hot water running down his back and steam filling the little room, and the quiet realization that he mattered enough for someone, somewhere, to build him a place with a door that locks and water that runs warm. That's what a bathroom means when you've had to live without one. Keep that feeling in your mind, because we're going to come back to why these homes can offer all of this for so little. The number is going to surprise you. Now let's go to the kitchen. It's a simple setup along one wall. A small refrigerator, a 2-burner stove, a microwave, a sink, and just enough counter space to actually make a meal. A few plates in the cabinet, a couple of pots, some silverware in a drawer. Ordinary stuff. The kind of stuff you probably have 3 times over in your own home and never once think about. But cooking your own food is one of the most powerful things a person can do when they're rebuilding their life. When you're on the street, you eat whatever you can get, handouts, whatever's cheapest at the dollar store, cold food out of a can, day after day, food that other people decided you were going to get. You lose the ability to choose. You lose the ritual of feeding yourself, of standing at a stove and making something warm with your own 2 hands. That ritual is so basic that most people never notice it. But take it away for a few years and it becomes one of the things you miss most. The first meal this man cooked in his own kitchen was scrambled eggs and toast. That's it. Eggs and toast. He said he stood at that little stove and cracked the eggs into the pan and listened to them sizzle, and it hit him so hard he had to stop and put his hand flat on the counter to steady himself. He was making his own breakfast, in his own kitchen, something he'd done 10,000 times as a younger man and never once appreciated. And now, standing there in the morning light, it felt like the whole world had been quietly handed back to him on a chipped white plate. That's the pattern you start to see in a place like this. It's never the big things that break people down, and it's never the big things that build them back up. It's the eggs. It's the light switch. It's the click of the lock. The small, ordinary pieces of a normal life that most of us take completely for granted every single day without a second thought. Let's go to the last room, the bedroom. There's a bed, a real bed with a frame, a mattress, sheets, and a blanket. A small dresser and a lamp on a nightstand. A window with a curtain he can pull closed at night. And most importantly, a door he can shut. I keep coming back to doors, and I want you to understand exactly why. Because sleep is where the real damage of homelessness lives. When you sleep outside, you never sleep deep. Your body simply won't let you. You're too cold, or too hot, or too scared, or too exposed. You wake up every hour. You wake up if a branch cracks. You wake up if a car door slams somewhere in the dark. You sleep with one eye open and one hand on your bag, night after night after night. And that adds up in a way most people never stop to think about. Researchers who study sleep have found that going without proper rest for even a few nights impairs your memory, your judgment, and your ability to control your own emotions about as much as being legally drunk. Read that again. A few bad nights leaves your brain functioning like it's had too much to drink. Now stretch that out. Not a few nights. 3 years. Over 1,000 nights in a row of broken, shallow, frightened sleep. It's not that people on the street won't get their lives together. It's that a brain running on years of sleep deprivation physically cannot plan, cannot focus, cannot hold a thought long enough to climb out of the hole, no matter how badly the person trapped inside it wants to. The first full night of sleep in this bed, the man told me he slept 11 hours straight. 11 hours. He woke up genuinely confused because the sun was already high in the sky and he couldn't remember the last time he'd slept past dawn. His body had finally been given permission to rest, and it took everything it could get. And after a few weeks of real sleep, real deep, uninterrupted sleep, he said he started thinking clearly again for the first time in years. He could plan, he could remember things, he could hold a conversation without losing the thread. He could even imagine a future, which is something you completely lose the ability to do when every ounce of your energy is going towards surviving the next 24 hours. So now you've seen the whole place. The front room, the bathroom, the kitchen, the bedroom, a simple metal building at the end of a gravel road. And you might be wondering the same thing a lot of people wonder when they first see one of these. How is this even possible for the money? A barndominium strips all of that away and keeps only what a person actually needs to live with dignity. The metal shell goes up fast and costs a fraction of traditional wood framing. The open floor plan means far less interior construction, fewer walls, fewer rooms to finish. Simple, durable finishes like the sealed concrete floors mean no expensive flooring to install and almost no maintenance down the road. And on top of all that, volunteers and donated labor handle a huge part of the work. Every single dollar goes toward function instead of show. What you end up with is a home that does everything a home is actually supposed to do. It keeps you warm. It keeps you dry. It gives you a kitchen, a bathroom, a bed, and a door that locks. It just doesn't waste a single dollar trying to impress anybody. And that's exactly why places like this can exist in the first place. Because somebody finally asked the right question. Not how do we build a nice house, but how do we build a real home for the least amount of money possible so that we can build as many of them as we possibly can. And who are they for? A lot of them are built for veterans. Men and women who served this country, who came home carrying wounds you can't always see, and who somehow ended up on the street anyway. On any given night in America, tens of thousands of veterans are sleeping outside. People who once wore the uniform, who were promised they'd be taken care of when they came home, now sleeping in the cold. Some of them came home with injuries. Some of them came home carrying things in their minds that never fully healed. And too many of them came home to find that the country they served didn't quite know what to do with them. It is one of the quietest tragedies we have in this country, and almost nobody talks about it. But these homes aren't only for veterans. They're for the single mom who lost her job and then lost her apartment a month later. They're for the older man who worked hard his whole life and then got hit with one medical bill that wiped out everything he'd saved. They're for the young person who aged out of foster care at 18 with nowhere to go and no one to call. They're for the people who did everything they were supposed to do and still fell through a crack that most of us don't even know exists until we're standing right at the edge of it ourselves. Because here's the truth that scares people once they really sit with it. Most folks are a lot closer to that edge than they'd ever like to admit. One lost job, one serious illness, one family falling apart. For millions of people, that is the entire distance between a normal life and a tent behind a gas station. It's not laziness that puts people on the street. It's almost never laziness. It's almost always something that could happen to any one of us, on any ordinary Tuesday, without any warning at all. And that's what makes a place like this Barndominium so important. It's not charity in the way most people think of charity. It's a hand backup. It's a door that lets a person close out the chaos of the world just long enough to get their feet back under them. Give a person a safe place to sleep, a hot shower, a kitchen, and a locking door, and you would be amazed how fast they start putting their life back together. Not because they suddenly became a different person, but because for the first time in years, they finally got to stop surviving and start actually living. If you've made it this far into this video, I already know something about you. You've got a good heart. Maybe you're someone who wants to help. Maybe you're someone who's struggling right now, closer to that edge than you'd ever tell anyone, watching this quietly and wondering if there's a way out for you too. Either way, I want you to hear me clearly. There are real ways to get help, and real ways to give it, that most people have absolutely no idea exist. I put together a free guide called The Veteran's Blueprint, and I've left it linked right in the description below this video. Inside it are the actual resources and the actual steps. The kind of practical, on-the-ground information that helps a person go from having nothing at all to having a door of their own. Whether you're trying to help yourself, help a veteran you know, or help someone in your community who's quietly slipping through the cracks, that free guide is where to start. It costs you nothing to read. And it just might change everything. Because at the end of the day, the man in this Barndominium isn't special. He's not stronger than anyone else, or smarter, or luckier. The only thing that ever changed for him was that somebody, somewhere, decided he deserved a roof. A simple metal building at the end of a gravel road, concrete floors and white walls, and a door that clicks shut against the whole hard world outside. And from that one small thing, an entire life came back to him. The hot shower, the scrambled eggs, 11 hours of sleep, the quiet, the dignity of choosing his own breakfast and closing his own door, and finally, after 1,100 nights out in the cold, being able to exhale. That's what $20,000 can do. That's what a home really is. And there are people out there right now, tonight, sleeping in the cold, who are just one door away from getting their whole life back too. The link is in the description. Go take a look.